Hello, Year 8. So, our lessons this week will focus on this short story, The Cave. So, there will be two quizzes. There's 2 pages to this story, page 1 and page 2. So, there'll be quiz questions, multiple choice for you to answer on both pages. So, the first session, Monday session, will be on page 1, and then Wednesday session will be on page 2. And as usual, Tuesday's lesson will be a reading lesson, and there'll be a spelling test on Thursday. So, if you're going to read it yourself, then good luck. And if you are going to listen and read along with me, then have a go at answering the questions as best you can when you have finished. So, this first quiz, like I said, is just on page 1, and then page 2 will be on the next session, so Wednesday session. So I'll read the whole story now, and I'll stop and you can I'll leave a short gap between the 2 pages. Okay, so Mary slept fitfully. She tossed and turned without ever properly waking up, and dreams of anxiety came and went as the moon inched its way reluctantly across the cloudless sky. For the first time in many a night she was woken by neither the cries of her hungry young son nor the late arrival of her workaholic husband. The previous day had been a long and tiring one. Alfie had been grumpy and had refused his milk all afternoon. Only by late evening had he finally given up and gone to sleep. The heating had broken down in the morning, and the plumber hadn't answered his phone. On top of that, Rob's garage had contacted her after lunch to explain that the repairs to the car were going to take much longer than expected. Apparently, the drive shaft was corroded and the gearbox had to be replaced. Where the money was going to come from, she didn't know. She had tried to phone Jake at the office for support, but had just got through to his voicemail every time. Her best friend Belinda, to whom she would normally turn for help, was on holiday, and her elder sister Kate was away in Kent on business. As she awoke, Mary felt her pillow dig sharply into her neck, and she moved her head to one side to relieve the pain. A sudden shallow scratch appeared on her left cheek, and she sat up with a cry of surprise. Raising her hand to her face, she discovered the culprit, a small grain of sand, which fell silently and sulkily to disappear into the gloom by her hips. Her bed felt hard, like stone. She put her hand down onto the mattress to discover that her favourite soft cotton sheets were unexpectedly damp and strangely unyielding under her exploring fingers. A fraction of a second later she was wide awake, mind racing, as she realised that she was not in her bed, nor even in her bedroom. Her heart drummed a frightened rhythm on her ribs, and the pupils of her lovely eyes widened in a desperate quest to gather light for her brain. Mary's right amygdala screamed at her to take action. But what action? She scrambled to her feet and hit her head hard on a rocky ceiling. Tears appeared in her eyes, but she blinked them angrily away and searched in the darkness for a landmark. Over there, a lighter patch of dark, no bigger than a grape. Her left hand outstretched, and her right hand shielding her bruised head, She bent over at the waist, crouched as much as comfort would allow, and carefully made her way towards the light. To keep her fear at bay, she focused her thoughts on other things: the price of children's clothes, the baby aardvark at the zoo, recalling that it feeds on ants and termites. She remembered the local newspaper report of a man who had apparently gone missing without trace from his seaside holiday home last week, and that her husband was particularly fond of cheesecake. The floor was highly uneven, but largely flat and free from obstructions, and Mary made steady progress towards her goal, collecting only minor bumps and scratches on her elbows and shins. Soon the light had become the size of a football, and then large enough for her to see more clearly and allow her speed to increase. She soon reached the entrance of the cave. Stopping suddenly with a sharp intake of breath, Mary looked down in disbelief. Below, the delicately painted toenails of her besmirched and grimy feet stretched the sheer limestone cliff face. At its base, perhaps 100 meters below, snaked a silent silvery stream, shimmering in the sunlight. So there are 15 questions, multiple choice questions, for you to test your understanding of the story and some of the techniques and some of the information contained in that first page. So you might need to have a reread of it before you do the test, but that's up to you. There's a time limit for each question. So I look forward to seeing your results. So that's page 1. And in a minute I will start reading page 2, and that will be for our second session. But so just if you're not sure what's happening, so a lady has been asleep, fast asleep, and then she wakes up. She thinks she's in her bed, but she's not. She's found herself, she doesn't know how she's got there, but in a cave, in a dark place, and she bangs her head and she sees a faint light, and she goes towards the light and she finds the entrance to the cave, but she is high up on a cliff face, and there is a stream below her. So that's the end of page 1 of the story, and now I'm going to read page 2. A large, sharp-beaked bird sat on a long, moss-covered ledge to the left of the cave entrance. There was no escape that way. The ledge petered out after a few meters in any case. It was barely wider than her foot. To the right, a few small stunted bushes clung tenaciously to the rock face, their gnarled roots taking advantage of a few deep cracks from which dark stains, evidence of water, emerged to tarnish the cliff face. Twisting her shoulders and poking her head out into the nothingness, she swiveled her eyes skywards and saw that she was standing about 10 meters below what looked like the top of the cliff. She couldn't be sure, but she thought that she could see some thin trees and yellow-flowered gorse bushes just above the line where hard grey gave way to soft green. Feeling suddenly dizzy, Mary withdrew her head into the comparative safety of the cave and sat down to think. Her frontal lobe arrived at the obvious answer at the same time as the alarm on her mobile phone informed her that it was time to feed Tiger, the neighbour's cat. Peter was away in Cyprus, and she had volunteered to look after his beloved pet until he returned. Heaven knows why it was called Tiger. It was jet black with green eyes, and it was as scared as an elderly lady in a shark tank. Mary silenced the inappropriately jolly and annoyingly persistent tune, and noticed at the same time that there was no signal. Strange, since she was so high up. She pointed the screen towards the sky, but there was still nothing. With a shrug, she got up, adopted her crouching stance, and began her journey back into the cave. After some minutes, she looked behind her and saw that the light at the entrance had dwindled to the size of a peanut. Using the torch on her phone to speed her progress and protect her aching body from the harsh rock, she continued down the ever-narrowing tunnel. Over the last few minutes, her feelings of optimism had been gradually fading as the space around her diminished, and they were soon to evaporate completely. After a few more steps, Mary came across the thing that she had not even dared to contemplate. The tunnel ended abruptly. She had reached the back of the cave. The walls, roof, and sides of a subterranean prison joined together in a stony embrace, and her way was completely blocked. She frantically waved her torch around in the darkness and checked 3 times in every direction, but there was no alternative. Her hopes were dashed. She had no alternative but to go back. Surely this was impossible. How had she got here? What was going on? Her brain ached as she fought back the panic. Think, Mary, think. Her neurons fired like an artillery barrage. Fight, flight, or freeze. None of them were an option, and she knew it. She forced herself to remain calm, turned around, and began reciting prime numbers to help her remain in control. She began to retrace her steps. When she was at last reunited with the daylight, she once more poked her head out into the abyss and reassessed her limited options. Far below, she thought she could make out a yellow excavator approaching a little bridge across the river, but it was too far away to help her. Taking a deep breath, she turned her back to the sun, slid her left foot out of the cave, and placed it into a small hole. She began to climb. So that's the second page. That's the end of the story for this week. So I hope you thought it was interesting. So there's a bit of a mystery here about how Mary ended up in this cave on top of a cliff. So she found herself looking out and around, trying to see what's surrounding her from the mouth of the cliff, and she realized there was nowhere to go. She was looking around the sky and the bushes and shrubs, and then she thought she'd better see, as she couldn't safely climb down the cliff. It was too sheer and dangerous. She thought she'd better go and explore the cave, so she uses her torch on her phone and follows the path back down to the cave for a long way until it comes to a dead end. So that was not how she got there. So she panics but makes herself calm again and finds her way back to the entrance to the cave and does the only thing she can do, which is try and climb up. So I hope you have been concentrating. Like I said, there are 2 quizzes, one on page 1 and one on page 2. So Monday's quiz was on page 1 and Tuesday's quiz is on page 2. So good luck with that, and I look forward to seeing how well you do. Thank you very much.